So hello there, how is everyone? I hope you are all well on this fantabulous Thursday morning. This is video one of only one, as I'm only doing one video today, but I'm going to make it a little bit longer. So let's get straight into the meat and potatoes, but before I do, let me just say you are looking amazing. Well done you. It's nearly Friday as well. You've lasted really well. Let's hope that we continue that into the weekend and reap the benefits of it. Anyway, shut up. The last few hours have been awash with comments surrounding DNA. DNA, and also statements made from Jennifer Coffindaffer on the crime itself. On the crime itself, how it all came to be, how it all came to pass, and I'm going to be talking about that later on in the video. But for now, I just want to talk about the DNA itself and the issues that I have now the dust has settled and I've been able to look back at it. These are the issues that I have with the DNA. There was the whole process of finding Brian stinks to me. I think I'm going to put this out there straight away, and that is I believe Brian Kohberger was stitched up by someone. Someone stitched him up, and what I mean by that is, this has got no bearing on whether he's innocent or guilty. I just believe that somebody tipped off law enforcement. And who do I think it was? I think it was someone in Brian's family. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But what I'm saying is there is evidence to support that. And that is that, first of all, they are making it very clear that they're hiding the participants, if you like, in the DNA, the finding of the DNA, if you like, this difficult to understand, complex, convoluted situation that they've extracted and kind of, yeah, that doesn't any longer exist. That seems to be an ongoing thing with this case. This no longer exists. This isn't being said. This is going to be kept secret. Everything's being kept secret. But what I don't understand is if you've got DNA results, you've got a hit, why certain things have to be hidden? Because they're hiding Brian Kohberger's relatives from Brian, and you think to yourself, but these are people who have put their DNA on a database publicly so people can search and find, and so why would they hide it from Brian? I could be wrong. I could be that that's not what's happening, but that's how it reads to me, that they are hiding the sample, the person who led them to Brian. And I think that there's a case. I think Brian's sister. I do. I think Brian's sister pointed them. We've heard comments. We've heard rumours that Brian Kohberger's sister, I think it was Dateline, had basically said about Brian acting strange. Yada yada yada. You'll know if you watched it. You'll understand. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I do, because I've never understood why law enforcement had to go to Brian's parents' house to obtain a sample of his DNA. Like that to me doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense whatsoever. If you've got enough evidence to travel across from Washington, Idaho, over to Pennsylvania to try and get DNA from a fucking bin outside his parents' house, then surely you've got enough evidence to just go and knock on his door and say, "Excuse us, chap, I don't suppose you can come in, can you, and do us a solid and provide some DNA, because we've got reason to believe that you could have potentially been involved in this crime. We're not saying you are, but your car matches the one that we're looking for. We know you frequent the area, and we just want to rule you out. Is that all right? Cheers, boss. And fuck off and do it." I don't understand all this convoluted cloak and dagger shit. And the only thing that makes sense to me is that someone's flat out told them he did it. And at the point where someone goes and says, "Look, I'm his sister, I know he did it," the ball game changes. The way they have to approach things changes. They can't then just walk up to him and say, "Look, we want to try and rule you out." Because that it might be, it might not be, we've just got to do a job. And we see it all the time. The way that they will call people in, we saw where there's been fucking lorry drivers who are serial killers, and they go and do a mass DNA hunt, you know what I mean? It's just something that happens. They will go and they will ask and request, and they'll take people in for questioning, and they do it. Jack would have been. We heard that the roommates were questioned. Anybody around these people questioned. So I think they said they'd done 90 odd interviews to people. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, if they had enough reason and enough evidence, if you like, to think we've got to go over to this guy's parents' house and start looking through his bin and getting DNA, then I'm sure you had enough reason to knock on his door and ask him for DNA. And I don't understand why that didn't happen. And the only thing that makes sense to me is that someone tipped them off and said he did it. And that's when they changed tactic, because they were scared he was a flight risk. He could have done one, he could have hurt someone else. Ball game changes. Let me know down below what you think to that, because that's my thoughts, and I know that I can be wrong. I'm never ever going to turn around and say, look, my way is the right way, the only way, and I feel that that's what happened in this situation. This is just the way I see it. There are issues surrounding the DNA, I get it, but I just don't see the point in arguing about it. At the end of the day, it is what it is. They're going to produce something in court that says this is a knife sheath, this is the DNA that we've got, and it's matching his. And they've got to argue that in court. That's it. And it is a hurdle. But this is an issue that I was talking about at the beginning. This is about Jennifer Coffindaffer, and this was a thread that was on Twitter, and they were talking about the sheath itself. They were talking about the sheath again, the fact that it was found under the comforter, under the victim, and how did that happen? This conversation was talking about loads of things. It was asking questions about single source DNA. It was talking about whether there was loads of blood on the sheath, so on and so forth. But the be all and end all was, I think lawyer, that sexy beast had touched on it, and he turned around and said, look, that kind of half explains why it got left there. Because if it got tucked under something or wrapped up in something and got out of the way, then it would have perhaps posed an issue to find it, and that gets to the point where the perpetrator, if you like, they then have to leave and they just can't find it. And yes, it kind of, that then makes sense. But ultimately, Jennifer Coffindaffer rides in like a steed, and she's like, this was rage. This was rage. He came in and and this was rage, and it happened on this night. This rage just sort of boiled over and exploded. And I think to myself, you know what I always say, you can't have your cake and eat it. And what I mean in this instance, when I say you can't have your cake and eat it, is you can't say that this person goes into this house in a rage and he commits this atrocity to the point where there's so much going on, so much commotion that the knife sheath gets lost, and he's then got to really quickly escape because he's busting out of there, and we know that the time frame was so narrow that that kind of supports that this rat going crazy and leaving. But you then have an issue with your witnesses, because you've got two people in the house. Now I think to myself, what you have got, what we know that you've got in this is speed. You've got speed, because by the time you factor in when that car was seen, the driving, the trying to park, the getting into the house, factoring in like Xana being on her phone at 12 minutes past, the car then being seen driving away at 4:20, you've got approximately 8 minutes between Xana being on the phone, car being seen down the road. So you're not even factoring in the getting out of the house, walking out of the house, because Dylan Mortensen, sorry, she said she saw him walking, wasn't running, even though he's raging mad, and he's frantic, and he's walked out calmly, and speeds off down the road, gone. There's certain things with that the devil's in the detail, all right? The devil's in the detail. And this is what I say. For a start off, this situation, this entire situation to me, if you're going to say it was rage, then you know the surviving roommates heard something. You know they did. Because you're not going to have a rage-fueled attack that's silent. You can't turn the volume down. This isn't like Click with the remote where you can mute it. You would hear it. There would be an abundance of noise. It just would be. There would be noise. There would be, someone would be shouting, it would be a noise. And this is what I look at it like. I still say, and I've said this time and time again, this person enters the house and goes upstairs and does what he does upstairs. And that rouses the people downstairs, rouses them. And they all come out to hear what the noise is. And this person comes back down, gets an altercation with Ethan. After that, goes into the room, Xana, and I believe that this altercation's going on. The likelihood is Dylan Mortensen has seen what's happening, and she has shut the door and locked the door. Locked herself in a room, barricaded the door, whatever. And that's what I think happened. Or the alternative, because that's the only way that this can work if it was BK, unless he'd done this multiple times and he was in fact a ninja. Gone in there stealthily, done it, and nobody heard anything. She just happens to walk out of a room because she's heard a slight noise, walked out, he's dressed up like fucking Shinobi and walks out of the house. Do you know what I mean? And then gets in his car and flies off at pace. That was the statement that they made, at pace. And I have to ask the question there. Why would somebody be calm as a cucumber in the house, walks out of the house, gets in the car and flies off down the road then at pace? That to me doesn't make sense unless the person who was driving that car fucking knew that someone in that house was awake, alive, and could call 911. Because if you thought that you had gone into that house and slaughtered everybody in the house, you've then walked out of the house, you've got in your car, why would you just not have driven off normally? Like I say, the devil is in the detail. That doesn't make sense to me. The only reason someone would fly off down the road after doing that, if they've walked out of the house, because again, this is where the stories of like Dylan Mortensen start throwing spanners in the work. If she'd have turned around and said, well, there was a load of commotion, there was a load of stuff going on, I heard noises, I didn't know what it was, thought it was being written, and I was just scared shitless. Didn't call 911. You see what I mean? There's so many problems in this case. But yeah, Jennifer Coffendaff was like, this was rage, and that doesn't sit right. That you saying rage doesn't sit with what this crime looks like. If you factor in what the witnesses or witness states, doesn't work. What does work in this situation is someone who had done this before, completely knew what they were doing. They got in with speed, precision, done what needed to be done, and they got into a car where someone else was driving, and due to them knowing what had happened, they then drive away at pace. And I wonder whether Bethany Funk, the night that this happened, had either seen Brian in the car, seen him outside while this attack was going on. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the exculpatory evidence could be that Bethany Funk could hold. What could that be? Let me know down below. At this stage, what could it be? And I do know, and I do feel that the defence's claim that Bethany Funk could potentially have exculpatory evidence kind of loses its weight to me in terms of how much do I trust that they do, because how I've seen them attack this situation with the DNA, even after it was said that that wasn't going to be used. It was clearly stated. We knew that they weren't going to use it because we've been fucking arguing about it for weeks as to why they would omit it from the court proceedings. But the defence apparently didn't get that memo because they're saying that that's exculpatory and that's not part of the... Anyway, who knows? But let me know down below what you think. What is going on in this case? What actually is going on? And this has been a bit of a ranty video, and that's why I'm only doing one today, because there's so much going on in this case. It just don't make sense to me now. Just don't make sense. This DNA situation, it's not looking good, but why all this convoluted and messing about? And I just don't get it. Why didn't they just go to him and say, give us your fucking DNA? You drive a white Hyundai Elantra. Well, looking for a white Hyundai Elantra. You've been in this area. You eat in a restaurant where the victims went. Crack on. Give us it. I just don't understand. Did Brian Kohberger's family stitch him up? Did someone tip them off, and is that what happened? And with regards to this attack itself, rage. How does rage fit in to what Dylan Mortensen said? How does that work? And if it weren't that, and it was quiet, it was stealthy, it was quick, it was efficient in this manner, please fucking tell me if Brian Kohberger looks like, again, Shinobi. I'll catch you all in the next one.